Anna and
Wanshi.
Nice to meet you. Actually, these days I'm doing a lot of videos about acting in Korea, and I realized that you guys are so interested in acting in Korea and want to come here study acting, and that's why I thought it would be kind of interesting to make a video about the challenges as a foreign actor here in Korea. So that's why I invited Wanshi, who has also a lot of experience here. And to make this video a little bit more effective, I prepared some different themes, some challenges themes. So if you're interested in one of them, you can just skip to them in the timeline. And the first one is talking about roles. Yes. What do you think, Wanshi? How is it to be an actress in Korea as a
okay, just in
foreigner?
case you are thinking, oh, this girl is Korean. I'm not. Okay,
That's why that's the most difficult thing,
yes,
right?
that's the greatest challenge. Because at the first look, people will think, oh, you're Korean and you speak Korean. But in fact, I'm not. I'm actually from Singapore, so I'm actually a foreigner here in Korea. And so for roles, it's kind of difficult for me because if you look at Anna, at the first look you will know, oh, she's a foreigner, so she's going to get a foreigner role.
Yeah.
But for me, it's kind of ambiguous. So I can't really go for a Korean role because, you know, my Korean is not that great yet. But, you know, when I go for casting for a foreigner role, they will like,
You don't look so foreign.
you don't look foreign enough. You don't have white skin, you don't have dark skin, you don't have a different hair color. So it's kind of difficult. Yeah.
And even sometimes they ask for like East Asian actors, but then it's like, you look really like a little bit Korean. So I think especially people from Japan, from China, they have, from Mongolia also, they have a lot of difficulty to get actually roles as a foreigner because I really look like a foreigner. So sometimes when I go to casting, it's written there, we cast foreigners, but non-Asians. So they just want like the foreign looking girl or boy. But also for me, it's like you always get those roles, like the stereotypes. So when I first started acting in Korea, it was always like the foreign myeoneri, the sister, the daughter-in-law. But now, since Korean society is also changing, the roles I think also changed a lot because there are actually a lot of foreigners living here. And I think it's getting better. But in the beginning, when I started acting here, it was always the English-speaking, French-speaking, German-speaking, Russian-speaking. But now it's getting a little bit better, so they also want foreigners to actually speak in Korean.
And I think you also need to turn your challenge into your strength.
Yes.
You know how to get the edge. Like, for example, because I speak a few languages, although I'm not very good in Korean, so I use that as my edge. So I go for casting as Chinese. So I managed to get one or two Chinese speaking roles, which is getting more popular in Korean films and dramas probably. Yeah, so you need to know your strength. Turn your challenges into your strength.
And I do think that in every country in the acting business, it's all like about the image and then what kind of role you can do. But if you really want to do it, and especially in theater, it doesn't have to be like realistic. So I'm also staring at a theater play and it doesn't matter if I'm a foreigner, if I'm Korean, I'm just like a person. So it changed with time and you just have to, like you said, turn that challenge into your strength. Okay, the next challenge I want to talk about is language. Yes, because we have been acting in Korea, also like in Korean. We are both actually attending like K-Arts and we studied everything in Korean. All the classes are in Korean, but still language can be a very, very big obstacle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, because the language we use in daily life is a little bit different from what you use on stage, or you need to articulate. See, even my English articulation is getting worse. you need to articulate your intonation, your nuances, your pronunciation has to be a little bit clearer and more distinct during acting. So that is a little bit of an, okay, not a little bit.
And it also depends on the person you work with. So some directors, they actually ask you to speak bad Korean, like 한국말 좀 못하게 해주세요. So you also Korean.
Korean.
So usually when you talk, you're like saying like 안녕하세요, and he said do some 안녕하세요. Some directors actually ask you for that. And then there are some directors who do not even understand how difficult it is to speak in another language, and that you actually have an accent that doesn't disappear like immediately, even if they say you have to pronounce it like this, like this, like this. It doesn't work if you have like lived and talked in another language for around 30 years.
The parts that you use are very different when you speak.
And that's why I think that every acting job you do, you should actually have one Korean person who is familiar with like another foreign language and who can teach you how to pronounce it in a very friendly way. So some people actually, like do it like me, and it doesn't work. They don't understand that it doesn't work. So I think it's really important to have somebody to like talk with you, a speaking coach. And I think like in these days, some theater performance actually have a speaking coach also for Korean people. I mean, Korean actors also have difficulties with pronunciation. So I think this is a factor that is really important. Yes.
I think it's not only for foreigners, even if, because in Korea, Seoul is the capital city, so the Korean they use in Seoul are considered the standardized Korean. If you are from other parts of Korea, you might speak with a dialect accent. And this is also a little bit looked down upon. So I'm sure my friends from Busan, from other parts of Korea, have the same problem as us. Because the intonation, it's slightly, the accent is slightly different from standardized Korean used in Seoul. So we face the same problem. But I consider myself quite lucky, because during my last theater production, which is actually in school, so my director, who is also one of my prof, he was very nice. He gave me a one-to-one coaching session. So he was like helping me with my diction, everything. So for me, it was very helpful, and you kind of know what your language pattern is, your habits are, and you need to make a conscious effort to change it. And although at the end of the day, it's impossible to change it within a short time frame, like 1 month. It's impossible.
It takes time, but like if you really want to like act in Korea, I think the language is one of the most important things. So a lot of people like think about, it's so easy. If I can speak like Korean, it's not. Because like if you want to go into the business, the language is really, really important. And you can have lucky cases like this, but also some cases like when I was in school and had a class, and one of my acting partner, he said, Anna, if you speak Korean like this, I cannot react to your acting. And I was like, that is so unfair, because I did my best, but some people, they don't really understand what it is like to talk in a foreign language. So I think that is actually a big, big challenge, which shouldn't like take you back from acting, to the acting in Korea. But I think you have to think a lot about this challenge, because if you just come here and think everything will be easy, you will be really disappointed.
Yeah, you need to really put in a lot of effort.
Yes. Okay, so the next challenge we actually want to talk about is cultural difference. Yes.
Do you face a lot of cultural differences in Korea?
Yes, but I think it's because I come from a total different culture. So I think it's like living in Korea, I realized a lot that the Western culture and the Eastern culture is so, so different. There's actually a really fun book. It's called the 생각의 지도, the map of thinking. I don't know the English title. I will put a link down in the description. And this book actually does like analyze the differences between Eastern and Western culture. And it made me realize, in living in Korea, oh my God, yes, that are all the problems I'm facing, because people thinking is so different. So, like in Korea, it's really important the uri, what we are doing together. In Western countries, it's always like me, like what I am doing. So I felt like in especially theater productions, that the us is more important, the community is more important than actually what everybody like is doing. And you eat all together, you after the practice you train together, you do everything together, like you don't actually have time on your own. And that was really difficult for me in the beginning, especially also attending school. But I feel that also has a positive side. So you really, like, you have a lot of people around you. You can learn a lot of more things. But I think like within this community is like us, but there's also a hierarchy. So that is when you can feel really strong in Korea. And that was in the beginning a bit difficult, and still I think I tried to adjust too much to it, so kind of like my real Anna German self slipped away. But I think right now I find like a balance just to 적당히 adjust to like the Korean system, but also don't like forget where I come from. I don't know, like because you also come from like an Eastern culture.
Yeah, I mean, Singapore is a multiracial place, so there is a mix, an amalgam of the. Why do I speak amalgam with a Korean accent now? Okay, anyway, it's a melting pot of the West and the East. So I don't really have a lot of problems. I don't see a lot of cultural differences here in Korea. It's rather similar. However, there are times when Koreans have got this should I use the word stereotypical? Have got this perspective that foreigners are more open-minded. They don't
it's
have
kind
got
of a
this
prejudice.
they won't have this more older sister, younger sister kind of relationship. But the truth is, even in Singapore, when I meet very, very young people, and for my younger friends usually call me Wanshi sister. There's a sister behind, So it's kind of weird when I've got a 20-year-old Korean coming up to me, hey Wanshi. So it's kind of weird when Koreans think that all foreigners are more open-minded and they don't have this and they just call me Wanshi. I'm like, and to make things worse, they can't differentiate which is my last name, which is my name, and they will call me by my full name, Jinwanshi. I'm like,
it feels like they're like
scolding me. Yeah, I'm like, okay. Yeah.
But I think this is like cultural difference. I think it doesn't make like acting really hard, but I think it's something important to talk about. So you need a lot of communication just to make the atmosphere, like when working theater on a movie, just to make the atmosphere better. It's just important to talk about it. And then Koreans are also open-minded. If you say, hey, actually I kind of got offended that there was this thing, or it's not usually in my culture. And if you say that, they actually like really do understand it. So I think for culture difference, it's just important to communicate. So our last big challenge is the working situation. Yeah, so about working, actually if you're working like in a theater or in a movie, something, it is important how you get there. So some people work with a foreign agency. Have you ever worked with a foreign agency?
Thanks to Anna and Anupam. So I got linked up with this Korean actors agency kind of thing. So I was lucky enough that they gave me this extra role.
Part-time job?
Yeah, in this drama, in this Korean drama. So it was a very different experience actually. because at the projects that I worked on was when they need a big group of Southeast Asians, Indonesians to be exact. Yeah, so when I went to the shooting location, it was like 3 buses full of Indonesians, Philippines, Vietnamese. So it was a very different experience, very fun experience for me. And okay, I don't know how filming is like in other countries, but that experience I had was, at 12 midnight, we have to all gather in front of the broadcasting station and board the bus. Because in Korea, I realized a lot of the dramas are not shot in Seoul itself.
Yes, there are some drama locations like in the neighborhoods, I think.
Yeah, so the one I went to was in Gyeongju, which is like almost 3.5 or 4 hours bus ride.
Did you get a lot of money? Because usually like those extra roles, they don't actually ask always actors, but just like foreigners living in Korea, and then they just like offer a very little price because they like need a lot of people.
So
it was okay?
I think it was okay. It was around 200 USD for a full day thing. So I think it was quite reasonable.
But actually there are a lot of jobs like this. Even if you're not like a professional actor or actress, you can just like, if you want to appear in a drama, actually it's quite easy in Korea, I would say. Of course, the visa is also a problem. So actually, if you're like a student, you're not allowed to work. If you get like the allowance, you have to like ask the immigration office. If you want to do a part-time job, you have to ask it in advance. And then when they say, okay, it's no problem. But usually if you're like having a working visa or like an artist visa, then it's okay to work. And then I think a lot of people can have the chance, like you said, to work with a foreign agency.
Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting experience for these extra roles. But of course, being an extra, you will not have a line.
Yes.
So if you really want a part with a line, that will be a minor role in the film or the drama. So it will be slightly different. It will not be the same as going to such agencies and they will call you for a role. The steps will be different and you have to go through auditions. My experience was, so first, there are audition notices. So you look out for these audition notices, or if they need a foreign role, you can just send in your profile, your clips, your acting clips, and then if they really want you, they will call you up, and then you will have another audition with them, and sometimes 2 more auditions before you get your real script, and then you work on it.
So actually, if you want to like go to auditions, there are some sites on the internet. So I think the most famous one is Filmmakers, and there you can not only for like movies or drama, but also for like some modeling, and they always search like foreigners, and then you can also, then you will need your like profile and also maybe a self-introduction video. So it's good to make those and then just send them to them, or work with a foreign company, with a foreign agency. They can also provide your visa, which is also a thing I wanted to say. Make sure to look at it. Like the contract in some foreign agencies, they actually make a contract for maybe 3 or 4 or even 5 years, and then you're not allowed to make any other works, only the work they offer, and you have to give them maybe like 50% of the money you get. So you're bounded to those people. So if you want to act in Korea, of course the working situation is not yet quite as good for foreigners as maybe for Korean people. So you actually have to think about what kind of acting you want to do. If you want to do extra sometimes it's difficult to get out of the extra role. Because if you have always been in so many movies just in the background, sitting there and making a foreign atmosphere, maybe they won't cast you in a big movie. That's what I realized when I started acting in Korea. So in the beginning I also did some like extra works because it's just fun and being on set. But then I realized if I do just extra, I'm the extra actress. And it's difficult to get out of that position, especially like as a white girl. And that's why I started like not denying extras, but I realized I want to focus more on speaking roles, or even now I'm actually doing more theater. I think if you want to work in Korea and make some experience, extra works are really fun if your visa allows it. And if not, just like think about other ways to do acting, because it's not only about like working, you can also do a lot of workshops, a lot of experience. So there are a lot of opportunities actually, I think right now, if you actually want to do acting in Korea. And I will actually make another video about the E6 visa, the 예술 visa, the artist visa, because I also have the visa right now, and a lot of people I think are curious about it. Because Wanshi also has the T2 student visa right now.
Yeah, I'm still having the student visa.
Yes, but when you graduate, you also kind of have to change. So I will definitely make a video about that. And I think, yes, I think we talked about a lot of challenges. Maybe for all of you who want to become an actor or actress in Korea, maybe one last word, if you have to say something.
Be positive. You have to have a very positive mindset and put in more effort to make things work.
And I would like to say, be realistic with a positive mind, but everything is not going to be the way you dream it. So there are definitely going to be challenges, even other challenges that we have been talking about today. So maybe if you have even like experience in acting in Korea, you can even add some of your challenges, share some of your experience. But I think those challenges just make you stronger, and if you really want to do it, you can do it. 파이팅!